is Bonnie Vandermeulen, Training Coordinator for Wisconsin Facets. On behalf of our entire Wisconsin Facets staff, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. Today, our webinar is entitled Up to Me, Starting the Conversation, and is the first in a series that will be discussed following. Our presenters today are Emily Jonesberg and Sharon Dorsett. Emily is the training lead for Rogers in Health, the Education and Advocacy Department of Rogers Behavior Health, and a proud mom of an active toddler and now a new baby. In her role at Rogers, she facilitates training for leaders in the nonprofit, education, and healthcare sectors. Emily also facilitates programming for staff at Rogers Behavior Health and with parents in the community. Prior to her work at Rogers, Emily worked in a youth serving capacity for over 13 years through various nonprofits and school districts. During this time, she also developed and delivered equity training with adults and youth. Emily has a master's of social work and is a licensed clinical social worker. Sharon is a senior training specialist with Rogers in Health. She brings over 30 years of experience, 20 plus years in leadership, working with traditionally underserved, vulnerable populations in social service, legal, behavioral health, and community settings. Sharon is also a certified senior facilitator, professional trainer, mentor, and coach. She works locally and abroad with culturally diverse youth and adults to promote civil dialogue, self-awareness, empathy, and authentic communication for relationship or community building. Sharon has a Bachelor's of Science degree in sociology and psychology and a master's degree in social work and an MBA. It gives me great pleasure today to introduce to you both Emily and Sharon. Ladies.
Thank you, Bonnie, and thank you, Wisconsin Facets, for having us. It is a pleasure to be with you all today. And I realized, Bonnie, as you're reading that, I need to update my bio. I'm a new mom with a 4-month-old and a 4-year-old. And that certainly informs the work that I do at Rogers and with this series that Sharon and I are going to share with you a little bit about here in a moment around starting the conversation. Before we dig into what this is all about and give you an overview of the core content, I want to take a moment just to talk about WISE first. And WISE stands for a WISE Initiative for Stigma Elimination. And it's a coalition of individuals and organizations across the nation, actually, that has a focus on looking at stigma reduction, particularly as it relates to mental health challenges. And there's a lot of core principles when it comes to WISE, but one of those is leaning on the expertise that comes with lived experience and rising that up to help not only empower an individual, but inform future practices of others at an individual, community, state, and national level as well. And all of the programs that Rogers in Health does really come out of the work of WISE, as we serve not only as staff of Rogers Behavioral Health through the in-health department, but also as staff of WISE. And that includes the Up to Me, starting the conversation curriculum that we're going to be covering during our series together. We had the pleasure of partnering about 10 years back when we first joined, when our department first started with Rogers. And it had the look of partnering with a number of these coalitions to start WISE at the time. And as I mentioned, it has this lived experience and also a stigma reduction lens to it. And we found when we started this initiative, we did some initial research around what the evidence shows for stigma reduction and talked with a lot of individuals through focus groups and found that while yes, education was part of the puzzle, so learning about mental health challenges and all that they entail, really the biggest part that aided in stigma reduction was the use of personal story. And when individuals were able to get to know someone who had a mental health challenge, learn about their journey, particularly their journey in recovery, that it was paired with the education that this story component really helped individuals challenge any stigma that they may have themselves, that they may project on others, or even self-stigma that they may have towards themselves. And so through this knowledge, WISE really sought to figure out what kind of programs already existed to help support people in telling their story in a way that supports them as a person, but also then challenges any sort of stigmatizing beliefs that our society may hold. And it's through that research that we came across Honest, Open, Proud, which has also been known as Coming Out Proud, which has been really through a lot of the work of Dr. Patrick Corrigan. And he has done a lot of research through his education or through his university that he's part of around what kind of work really helps eliminate and challenge stigma. And through that then created this Honest, Open, Proud program that helps support people and really an informed disclosure. So if they have something close to them, like a mental health challenge that they'd like to disclose with someone else, how they do it in a way that both supports them as an individual and helps meet their needs, but then stigmatizes any sort of, challenges any stigmatizing beliefs that may be going on around them in their community or our society at large. And after creating Honest, Open, Proud, then 2 individuals out of Australia found it to be particularly beneficial framework when thinking about how to support parents in talking about a loved one's mental health challenge. Well, getting the support that they need as a parent, and then also thinking about how they support their those that they're caring for, like a child or otherwise loved one, and then also challenging any sort of stigmatizing beliefs that may be going on in the community. And that's how this Starting the Conversation version came to be of Up to Me, which is also another version of Honest, Open, Proud, is the teen version of Honest, Open, Proud. So there's 3 different components here, just kind of an adult version, a teen version with Up to Me, and then what Sharon and I are going to be focusing on is Starting the Conversation, which is the parent version. Lots of individuals have been involved in this process and the creation of it. Lots that we have to kind of tip our hat to and say thanks to. And we're just honored that we get to share pieces of it with you all today and then in our series after our time together today in our future months. So in our overview session, we're going to first walk through the 5 main components of this Up to Me parent program. And then we're going to set the tone for what the future sessions will hold, along with create some common language or share some common language with you all that we'll build on over our time together in our future series. So I'm going to take a moment here to highlight the 5 main components that are part of our series. The first is that of defining stigma. So in our time together next month in February, the second Monday of February, we're going to dig into what is stigma, a little bit of that research that I mentioned about how do we combat stigma, and then talk a little bit about the prevalence of stigma out in our community. In our next series or next session of the series, we're going to look at self-stigma. This is how stigma in our society can get internalized for each of us, and how we use that internalized beliefs to impact ourselves, the way in which we think of perhaps our own mental health challenge, and our impact on our interactions with others. So for the sake of this series, it's also going to look at how we internalize these stigmatizing beliefs to think about our loved one's story and how we share our loved one's story with others. We're then also going to have a session to look at the different ways in which one can disclose a mental health challenge or a challenge that a loved one may be experiencing, including the option of not disclosing at all. So we'll talk about the many different ways we can go about that and a little bit about the pros and cons of each type of disclosure. Then we will have a session on if we've decided to disclose, how to go about doing that in a way that best supports ourselves, supports the loved ones whose perhaps story we may be disclosing, and thinking about how we care for ourselves in that process. And then finally, we'll wrap up our series in June, and we'll get a chance to take a little bit of a look at, now that we've looked at this whole framework and we've thought about how does it apply to us as in regards to being a caregiver of someone a loved one perhaps with a mental health challenge, how can we use some of this material to support those that we care for and even them sharing their story with others as well. So as I mentioned, we'll take our time together over the next few months to break these things down. Sharon and I are going to do our best to have some interactive components, so times where we'll pause and give you a chance to reflect on different pieces of it and apply it to your own situation or perhaps those that you're working with. and give chances for you to, of course, to have question and answer throughout our series as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Sharon to set some of this tone for our future sessions.
Hello, everyone. I'm so pleased to be here with you today. And as Emily indicated, I too am a parent of an adult son, and I have two small grandchildren. So I deeply appreciate understanding challenges that are being faced or may be faced by a parent or a grandparent, and knowing that I am not alone. So in that vein, I want to talk a bit about setting the tone here for our time together. It's really important to understand the number of people impacted by mental illness, and this too shows that no one is alone. I'll highlight some of the data for those who don't have access to see our slides today. 21% of US adults experienced mental illness in 2020. That is 52.9 million people. This represents 1 in 5 adults. 6.7% of US adults experienced a co-occurring substance use disorder along with a mental illness in 2020. That is 17 million people. 1 in 6 US youth ages 6 to 17 experience a mental health disorder each year. This data and one other piece, 50% of all lifetime mental illness begins by age 14, and 75% of all lifetime illness begins by age 24. Those were the pieces of data that struck me the strongest, that really show that no one is alone in having mental health issues or challenges. This data and more, including informative graphics, may be accessed by Googling NAMI, that's N-A-M-I, mental health by the numbers, NAMI, mental health by the numbers. In our next slide, you'll see a picture that is very representative of the wide range of individuals who potentially have mental health issues. They are us. They are our children. Anxiety, eating disorders, alcohol abuse, depression, schizophrenia, trauma. These are just a few of the many possible diagnoses that may be experienced. In the previous slide, we saw that 1 in 5 adults live with a mental health challenge. That means 1 in 5 of your friends, family members, coworkers, congregants, neighbors, etc., live with a mental health challenge. Or perhaps you live with a mental health challenge. In some cases, the stress of raising a child with a mental health challenge can bring about feelings of being overwhelmed with stress, with sadness, with anxiety. Seeking help for yourself, showing yourself compassion, and acknowledging your mental health challenges as a part of overall well-being can serve as a model for your loved one to follow. This will help in the decision of when, where, why, how, and with whom to disclose the child's story. We'll provide additional considerations around disclosure as our series continues. In slide 8, we're just going to give you a few words and phrases that will help us to create common language as we spend our time together through the series. We'll use the term person with a mental health illness or person living with a mental health challenge. Mental illness is a health condition that involves changes in one's emotion, thinking, or behavior, or a combination of these things, and is often associated with distress and or difficulty functioning in school, work, and or with family activities or in social environments. Mental illness is common, as we saw with the data in the earlier slide. Note that mental health and mental illness do not mean the same thing. Everyone has mental health, just like everyone has health. Not all people will experience mental illness, but everyone will struggle or have a challenge with their mental well-being or their mental health, just like we all have challenges with our physical well-being from time to time. Next, we'll define stigma just a bit. We're going to dig into this more as our series progresses, but just for the purposes of understanding in this moment, stigma is when a person defines someone by their illness rather than who the person is as an individual or as a whole. Self-stigma is the story you tell yourself about the challenges that you and your loved one faces. Again, this is something that we will look at more closely as we move on in the series in the coming months. Disclosure is sharing one's own story or the story of a loved one. And there are lots of considerations that can go into that. And we'll go over those considerations as you process the decision that you would like to make for yourself and your loved one. We use the word parent throughout this series, and we use it for simplicity, but it is intended to refer to any caregiver of a loved one, anyone who's living with a mental health challenge. So it could be a parent, it could be a grandparent who's caring for a child, a foster parent, a respite parent. It could be any caregiver who is caring for a loved one. One of the things you may have strong feelings about is how you choose to discuss mental health. You may use words like emotional struggles, you may use labels like depression, or terms like mental health condition. Throughout our series, we will use the term mental health challenges to refer to mental health concerns. Know that we honor each individual's choice in how they talk about their loved one's experience. Consider your options and use whatever words feel most comfortable for you. Next month, as we meet on Monday, February 14th, from 12 to 12:30, we will then define in detail what stigma is, what it looks like, and the forms that it may take. We'll talk about how stigma shows up in our society around issues of mental health. That could be within our families, it could be at our church, it could be at our school, or elsewhere out in the community. How does it show up? We'll dig into all of that. The effects of stigma on those who have experienced a mental health challenge along with their family members. So we'll take all of those things into consideration as we move forward. Today was just our overview. We look forward to digging in more deeply into this issue of what stigma is, how it may impact you, and your decision of how, when, and with whom to disclose your loved one's mental health challenges. If there are questions, we're happy to take them at this time.
So one of the questions that we have at this time is if we wanted to share information about the series with other people, how would you put together like a 1 or 2 sentence suggestion about how we could encourage them to want to tune in and listen?
Emily, I see you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I muted there. Sorry about that. I was just saying on the spot, 1 or 2 sentences I'm not great at, but I could say that if you are working with somebody who perhaps is having a hard time thinking about how to share their loved one's story with others, or would just like to think through a little bit more about how they share their loved one's experience, that this is a great opportunity for them to kind of unpack all that goes into how somebody goes about sharing that parts of people's identity with others. Sharon, does any 1 or 2 sentences come to your mind?
Well, again, I don't know if it's 1 or 2 sentences, but what comes to mind is the data. The fact that 1 in 5 adults experiences a mental health issue and 1 in 6 youth aged 16 to 17, those numbers just speak volumes to me. So this is something that touches us all, whether it is a family member, whether it's our child, our grandchild, we are being touched by it and we need to understand it and create an environment where we're able to have these conversations in a safe way, in a way that is caring and compassionate, so that if someone wants to disclose, there is the space and grace to do so. So again, whether it's us or someone else, it's creating that environment. So this information should be important to everyone because of the prevalence.
Hey, thank you. One other question was, if you're a parent and you think that this will be really beneficial for you to participate in, how can we as parents convince our child's school or teachers that maybe they should tune in and hear some of the things you're saying, so it might make it easier for us to present this kind of information to them in the future?
Well, I would say for a school, teachers are a part of a helping profession, and the data again is just so clear that the prevalence it's just everywhere. This is a part of whole person wellness. If we want to contribute to the health and the growth of positive, healthy individuals, children, this is something that needs to be heard. How a teacher or how another loved one can help to create an environment where a child can thrive with their mental health challenge.
And the beauty of the Wisconsin Facets format is that this is recorded and then put online for free. So also as you experience the series, if you then decide, you know what, this one was a great fit for my school, or it would be really supportive for me if my school were to observe this 30-minute webinar, you can always send the link afterwards and have people view it after you've gotten a chance to experience it yourself. And 2 other big pieces that stand out to me that come to mind with this question and the one prior is one of the biggest foundational pieces of this process when we think about being an informed disclosure is thinking about first, what is our reason for sharing, and putting that at the forefront as we get ready to talk with someone else about something that's close to us, whether it's because it's our own thing that's close to us or someone we care closely about. Once we're able to figure out what is our reason for sharing, then we can figure out what feels best when it comes to what we're going to share, how we're going to share it. And then that could be something that is a part of a teacher or school's process too, is for them to think about what is going to be their reason for engaging with you as a parent, or even with each other as they think about supporting your loved one, and then using that as the foundation when they think about what kind of things they need to share moving forward. And then also, we're really using this from the lens of a mental health challenge, but I have to say, as I've gone through this curriculum and thought about it in relation to other parts of my identity, it certainly fits with lots of different ways that you may, or different parts of yourself that you may want to share with someone else. So you may find as you engage in this curriculum with us that you're coming at it with the lens of a mental health challenge, but you may find out later on, you know what, I've got this other piece of me that is a little more vulnerable that I'd like to share with someone, and I can use the same framework to think about how and when and if I'm going to share that part of myself with others as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. I think that's great, and I think that's a wonderful part to stop on, because I think that people can look forward to the other sessions that will be following. And we'd like to encourage anyone who's participating today to encourage others to participate as well. So Emily and Sharon, thank you so very much for your presentation and overview of the series today. We greatly appreciate it. So thanks again. This will conclude our webinar for today. We'd like to thank all of you for joining us. Please be reminded that Wisconsin Facets has over 100 scheduled trainings and webinars for the year 2022. And please check our website calendar and register for any of the upcoming trainings that may be of interest to you. Also, please watch for the short evaluation after today's live presentation. Thank you again, Emily and Sharon. Have a good day, everybody. Stay safe, and bye-bye for now.